The council meeting of 19th of August 2026 open at 3:37. I remind all present that mobile phones must be switched off before the meeting, and the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Councillor Champion, would you like to do the acknowledgement of country, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledges the Gundungurra and Dharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land. I pay my respects to the traditional custodians, their ancestors who cared for this country for many thousands of years, and their elders and descendants who continue to care for country. I would also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, including those here today.
Councillors, you're reminded of the oath of affirmation of office made by you under section 233A of the Act and your obligations on the Councillors' Code of Conduct to disclose and appropriately manage conflicts of interest. We have no apologies. We'll now move to the minutes, confirming the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of July 2026. I'll take these as read. Could I please get a seconder? Councillor Kent. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. We now have declarations of interest. I'll go first. I have a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 9.2.4 planning proposal. I have a relationship with an adjoining landowner, so I'll leave the room and the deputy will take the chair for that item. Do we have any other declarations? Councillor Kent?
Yes, declaring a pecuniary interest in item 9.2.2 federal inquiry into artificial intelligence and data centres submission. The submission makes reference to local experience, which is we've only got really one, that's a proposal at 30 Douglas Road. The outcome of this development has the potential to significantly impact the value of my property, and therefore I'll be excusing myself from the chamber. Thanks.
Councillors, I now move a procedural motion that we resolve the order of business be changed in order to bring forward the following items by exception. The officer's recommendation for each item be adopted. The items I would like to deal with by exception are item 9.2.6, budget carryover, item 9.2.8, London Village Place Plan, item 9.4, committee minutes. Are there any items within this list that any council would like to speak or vote against? Okay, I'll go to seconder. Councillor Smith. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Let me just cross them out. I'll be back in a second. Okay, first item is 9.2.1, State Significant Development Application, SSD, for the Baraba Hotel. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Foley, a seconder. Councillor Smith. Councillor Foley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak in support of this motion. I'd like to acknowledge Mr Martin from the Barama Residents Association, who spoke at the public forum today as well, and thank him for his contribution. What we're looking at here is the adaptive reuse development of a Highlands landmark, one which I would say is highly valued by residents, as much due to its unique history and role in the European settlement in the Highlands as its unique heritage architecture. It is a state heritage listed site of significant historical, cultural and architectural importance. The jail, as we know, is privately owned, having been sold off in 2022 by the previous state government. And so the question is not whether we think it should be developed or not, but to examine how this development is going to take into consideration the concerns of the residents and to the council, and how the commercialisation of the site will contribute positively to the local economy, character and amenity of Barama. Adaptive reuse of heritage buildings, when done well, not only conserve an old building, but give back to the community to enhance and reactivate a historic site, along with employment and tourism opportunities, which is what we see being explored here with this proposal. So while the developer has been active in the community consultation and taking on board feedback, Council's submission that we are looking at tonight or today details several areas that remain to be addressed by the developer. And while the position of Council, which I'm endorsing, is in principle support, there are items that require further consideration. These include the significance of the Argyle Street facade and the need to preserve the wall's exceptional heritage value by not making any new cutouts into that wall. This will also maintain the integrity of the main opening as a publicly accessible entrance point to the jail. Further refinement so that the development responds to the character of the Barama village, pedestrian and traffic considerations, and requests to strengthen the conservation and management framework. I also support Council's recommendation that a qualified heritage specialist be engaged throughout the detailed design and construction, and that issues of the Eastern and Argyle Street wall opening, parking demands, pedestrian safety, servicing capacity and operational amenity issues are resolved before determination, as opposed to being deferred to post-consent management. I believe that these are all very achievable and are really fair expectations as this significant heritage building takes on a new life.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is an example of when debate in the chamber leads to a good outcome. Last time we considered this, we had a divided chamber, we had disagreement and we debated. We also had community raise their concerns about the development, and we also had councillors disagree, but we debated it. Since then, the developer has listened to the community, listened to councillors, and council staff have done a great job in bringing that all together into a report that we have before us. This is an example of community, councillors disagreeing, the council staff and the developer working very well together and coming up with a thoughtful, well-documented submission. I'd like to thank the team, the director and his team, on a thorough submission. And in particular, I'd like to highlight some of the areas that council staff have advocated strongly for. One, local supplier procurement. Staff have put forward strongly to the developer that we would like to see the developer use local suppliers in the development too. Council staff have advocated strongly for a flood risk mitigation to be an enforceable condition. 3, the heritage of the convict sandstone opening, the entrance, as Councillor Foley has just said, has been protected. We're strongly advocating to maintain that convict-built entrance. Fourthly, this submission advocates strongly for Aboriginal stakeholder input. Fifthly, council staff have also put forward, and I'm delighted to see this, that the community will have the chance and council to have final input into the heritage plan before it's finalised. And lastly, council staff have advocated strongly, to their credit, in maintaining community access to the building and that the community access remains intact. So this is a great example of when we all work together, where disagreement amongst councillors leads to a good outcome. And again, I'll commend the staff for a great submission here.
Thank you. Councillor Smith and Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think in our community we've spent far too long having to fight against things, and it's fantastic to actually have something that's positive from a design and architecture point of view, from a heritage point of view and a community point of view, as well as the environment. I think that this is an exciting project. I think that the community engagement side of this project has been handled well, and that's been handled well by both the developer and the council team itself. So I cannot wait to see this project come to fruition. I think it will really invigorate the Barama township, and in a heritage township like Barama, it is no small feat to get a project of this scale across the line. So I look forward to seeing what the future holds here, and I'm very happy to support it.
Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Despite my objections to this proposal previously, I can see that this is a very thorough and detailed council response, and I thank the staff for their efforts to advocate, particularly for First Nations consultation, heritage protections and local amenity. However, I can't agree with Councillor Moylan that all the contentions raised in our last debate on this issue have been resolved. I'm concerned that there isn't more emphasis on the environmental impacts that have been flagged repeatedly by community members, scientists and councillors here in this chamber. For example, the word platypus is not in there at all. I'm tabling today a submission made to Council by Catherine Warwick, a freshwater ecologist from Western Sydney University who has been researching Wingecarribee River for 5 years and has published peer-reviewed studies on local platypus populations and water quality. She argues that the proposal relies on a flawed aquatic assessment with insufficient study areas and unreliable sampling methods, leading to a lack of emphasis on existing platypus habitat. She argues that the proposal to remove riverbank vegetation would destroy the root systems essential for platypus habitat and for the stability of the riverbank, and that the proponent's sedimentation controls are an inadequate single line of defence that could destroy habitats and damage water quality if they fail. I recognise that there has been a waiver of the Biodiversity Development Assessment report granted for this project. However, the explanation given for that waiver was that there is no native vegetation affected by the proposal. And that explanation is wholly unsatisfactory given Ms Warwick's testimony. Native or not, that vegetation is holding the riverbank together, and that is providing habitat for platypus and preventing further sedimentation of the river and declining water quality. For this reason, I'm concerned that the draft submission doesn't do enough to advocate for our native species or for our drinking water, and I am proposing an amendment, which I have sent through to Dr. Lidgard. I'll read it out while that's coming up. That Council formally table the submission from expert ecologist Catherine Warwick, endorse the submission in relation to the response to submissions for the Baraba Hotel state significant development with numbers, subject to the following changes. Incorporate Catherine Warwick's expert ecological findings into Council's technical advice to ensure the platypus population and the health of the Wingecarribee River are protected. B, require that the proponent specifically addresses PFOS contamination risks, the retention of established riparian trees for bank stability and enhanced sedimentation controls beyond standard barriers. C, request that the Department of Planning commission an independent expert assessment to verify that the development will not result in habitat loss or a decline in water quality within the Sydney drinking water catchment. 2, note that matters identified for further consideration through the SSD assessment process and any future conditions of consent. And clause 3 is unchanged.
Can I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Russell. Councillor Champion, go ahead.
Thank you. Look, I think I've outlined my concerns here. This is, I think, a small amendment to the submission, which on the whole I think is very good. But I do feel uncomfortable with this piece of information missing and the ecological implications being potentially overlooked in the following process for this SSD. My concern here is, are we doing the best that we can for our protected species? And in 40 years' time, will we look back and think that we've done the right thing? And I think this small change will put my mind at rest, and I hope you support that.
Councillor Smith.
A question through you, Mr Mayor, of Councillor Champion, if I can. Councillor Champion, can I ask just, and maybe it's a process question, is there a reason why Catherine Warwick's report wasn't submitted before, or?
Thank you for the question. My understanding, she sent it to me, copied in to me because I'd had some discussions with her, and she told me that it had been submitted through the council portal. I have no idea whether that was received properly or what happened to it after that.
Councillor Russell.
I'd like to thank the staff for their excellent work on this submission process. I am supporting Councillor Champion's amendment because I believe this work needs refinement that has been presented to us by Blue Sox. I'm not comfortable with the amount of work that has been done by the proponent. They have got a national crown jewel in their hands. $7 million for Baraba Jail, a beautiful sandstone heritage structure in the heart of our crown jewel heritage village, Baraba. And here we have a proposal which still has not demonstrated that all of the necessary infrastructure can actually be integrated into this development proposal. We also have a proposal that still extends beyond the walls of Baraba Jail. We know that there are many of our community who are not happy that this is going beyond the walls of the jail. I feel like we've been presented with a false dichotomy. It's been, do you want adaptive redevelopment or no development? That's a false dichotomy. We want adaptive redevelopment, of course we do. We want that building, those structures preserved for the future. I'm not happy with Council's in-principle support, and I'll move an amendment on that later, because we need to be strong. This matter will go to the IPC. It will go to the Independent Planning Commission for a hearing. Why are we doing anything other than being really clear in our communications and expectations with Blue Sox when they've gotten our Baraba Jail for $7 million? Honestly, we can say, we expect that you are able to demonstrate this. I'm concerned that we're at this stage in the process and we haven't ticked these boxes. So I am supporting Councillor Champion's amendment. I think it's sound, and thank you for your research.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Just a further question through you, Mr Mayor, of the General Manager. Just further to Councillor Champion's point, is it possible to get through your staff any clarification around Catherine Warwick's submission?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think we'll need to take that on notice, Councillor.
Okay, so anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Kent?
Yes, I'm going to speak against this amendment. I'm not comfortable just adopting something that's just popped into our email boxes. We've not had a chance to absorb it. Councillor Champion, would you, and it's several pages long, what is it, sort of 10 pages, would you be prepared to consider a process where we receive the information and we ask staff to consider the information, propose suitable amendments to us to the submission before it gets lodged? Because
Councillor Champion?
Thank you for the question. I would like to see a vote on what I've put forward, but I think that would be potentially...
Okay, so we'll look at a further amendment potentially. Okay, there's no right or reply on that, so Councillor Foley, go ahead.
I had a question to the General Manager through you, Mr Mayor. Just around the second point, I've noticed that in our submission that Council recommends a construction environment management plan. Would some of those items, so the contamination risk, retention of riparian trees, would that be addressed at all by a construction environment management plan as well?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Mr McCabe, thank you.
Through you, General Manager, the requirements under that would be based on what the consent authority prescribe. So they may or may not, depending on the scope of that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we will now put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Foley, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Kent. That is successful. That now becomes the motion. I'll just wait till that gets pulled up. And now so Councillor Foley, I believe you've spoken. I don't think anybody else has spoken to the body of this. Is that correct, of the substantive? Councillor Moylan spoke to it, apologies. Councillor Russell, go ahead.
I would like to propose an amendment that we endorse, and it's we can put a point D if there isn't already one, sorry, yeah, that council's stance be changed to neutral from in principle.
Okay. Can I get a seconder for this? That has lapsed for one of a seconder, so we're back at the original motion. I'll just wait till the staff catch up with that computer. Would anyone else like to speak to the substantive motion? Okay. Right of reply to Councillor Foley.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate the input from the other councillors, recognising that this project has a lot of potential for the area of Baraba if it is done correctly. I believe that the conditions in the in Councillor Champion's amendment can be addressed in the in sort of the process of the project, and so I'm pleased to endorse the item as it is.
Okay, I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Smith, Councillor Foley, Councillor Smith. All those against? Councillor Duffy, Councillor Kent, Councillor Fitzpatrick. Apologies, Councillor Farrell, how did you vote? Or did you abstain? For it. Okay, that is carried. Councillor Kent to leave the room. Okay, next we have item 9.2.2, Federal Inquiry into Artificial Intelligence Data Centres. We have a mover in Councillor Champion. Are you moving it with a change, Councillor? Yep. Could I get your change, please?
Thank you. That has been sent through to Dr. Lidgard. I'll read out the change. That council endorse the submission to the federal inquiry into artificial intelligence and data centres at attachment 1, subject to the following strategic amendments. A public benefit test. Replace statements of general support for investment with a requirement that proponents demonstrate a substantial public benefit and alignment with host community interests and infrastructure capacity. B, no additional fossil fuel generation. Strengthen recommendation 5 to prohibit data centres from enabling new or expanded fossil fuel generation, requiring proponents to secure additional renewable energy in line with Commonwealth expectations announced by the Minister for Climate Change and Energy on the 5th of August 2026. C, a federal moratorium. Amend recommendation 14 to advocate for a Commonwealth legislated moratorium on new approvals until the proposed Australian standards and associated environmental safeguards are fully operational. 2, authorise the General Manager to lodge the amended submission on behalf of Council. And 3, write to the relevant federal ministers and the member for Whitlam with a copy to the New South Wales Minister for Planning expressing urgent concern that New South Wales planning reforms are accelerating assessments during a Commonwealth regulatory gap and seeking their support for a national moratorium until the new regulatory framework is legislated.
Okay, can I second it for this? Councillor Smith, Councillor Champion.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking Jess Ryle, who's not here anymore, for her presentation and for the extraordinary amount of work that she and other community organisers have already put into understanding AI data centres and their supporting infrastructure and how it may affect our shire. And it is already affecting our shire. The Wingecarribee is a peaceful place that people love for its green space and regional charm, and it's not often that our region finds itself at the heart of an industrial and technological challenge on a national scale. But here we are, facing a gas-fired data centre proposal so massive, it could completely change the face of energy use in Australia. The decisions made about this proposal have the potential to set a dark and concerning precedent for our country's future engagement with AI technologies, embracing toxic air pollution, industrialisation and escalating carbon emissions. Or decision makers could draw a line, say this proposal has a huge net negative impact and refuse to go down that particular road. We as a council do not have planning authority to make that decision, but we do have the power to advocate how the federal government will regulate the data centre industry across all states and territories. I want to thank the planning staff for preparing this submission into the federal inquiry into data centres. I think it is a really thoughtful and comprehensive piece of work, and it does an excellent job of identifying the scale of the challenges that large data centres present for communities and the importance of viewing data centres in the context of their enabling infrastructure. I think we have the evidence that the Southern Highlands community does want us to be very vocal in how we contribute to this discussion. Just last weekend, almost 500 local residents came together at the community forum organised around this campaign, and more than 600 people have now signed up as volunteers to help out. This is a wave of concern about a new industry that has the potential to have deep negative impacts if governments at all levels don't take extreme care over the decisions that are being made in the next few months as practices are established. We have an opportunity right now to strengthen our asks of the federal government in line with what the community wants and needs from us. And to do that, I think we need to ask a simple question. Should Australia be allowing very large data centres and their infrastructure to be approved under today's rules when the Commonwealth Government is developing an entirely new regulatory framework for them that will be implemented next year? The Commonwealth has recognised that the existing regulations aren't strong enough and have made it clear that under new Australian standards, it will not be acceptable for large data centres to be powered on gas-fired power generation alone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That would rule out the Mossvale proposal and any others like it under the coming standards. But meanwhile, large data centre proposals are progressing through state planning systems right now. That has created a regulatory gap. There's a very real possibility that a project could be approved under today's planning rules, and then once the Commonwealth framework comes into effect, the project would not meet the standards that the federal government has already indicated they believe are necessary.
Thank you.
Can I just, one more sentence?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm asking, the federal government can listen to affected communities and press pause while the rules catch up with the scale of what's being proposed, and that's why I'm asking Council to advocate for a federal moratorium on large data centre planning proposals.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. First of all, I'd like to actually thank Councillor Champion and her band of awesome women from the community, and I think they were all women, is that right? For what was the Stop the Gas Plant, which was, I must say, a community event done so well. It was educational, it was engaging, and it also gave a clear path forward. And I think that path forward is reflected in the recommendation today. And I think one of the key messages I took from that is really we do need to press pause. It is a broader issue. It's not just the Highlands. Whilst I wouldn't normally be someone to support a moratorium, I actually understand the reason for it on this issue, and I really appreciate the detailed and considered effort that has gone in by the council staff on this. I really think that this is a moment where rather than just simply fighting something, we're actually now starting to advocate and be positive, and I think there's a chance to ask more for what we want and hopefully get away from just saying what we don't want. And I really appreciate Jess Ryle's commentary in the public forum. I think the example of seatbelts and cars and the legislation around that is a perfect one. We need to be strong and proactive. I think this is a fantastic example of that, and I'm really proud to be part of a council putting that forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Foley.
I'd also like to acknowledge the effort or the work of the staff in putting together this submission, in particular the 15 recommendations on page 36 of the attachments, forms a checklist that we can hold the federal government to account for when it comes to regulating this industry. So regardless on how one might feel about AI or data centres, they are critical infrastructure supporting cutting-edge innovation, and we should demand that same innovation of how they are powered, designed and integrated into our landscapes and communities. The planning rules and regulations that govern data centres existed well before any hyperscale data centres were ever in the pipeline. A pause will allow the planning rules to catch up, and not to prevent data centres from being built, but to ensure that when they are, they contribute to our communities rather than consuming our employment lands, drinking water, transferring economic and environmental costs onto local communities and compromising hard-won progress on reducing carbon emissions. This is an industry that will be around for decades, and I want to see it done well in a way that is transparent, ensures consistency, guarantees environmental sustainability and delivers public value.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Russell.
I've just sent a document through to be tabled in association with this particular amendment. last year's National Congress of Local Governments, I passed successfully, with 1,300 delegates in the room, a proposal that the federal government provide a report back to local government on what community consultation had been done to develop a shared vision on the use of AI in this nation and what laws had been put in place to protect that shared vision. At the same conference, we had also had an amazing keynote speaker who'd worked in government bureaucracies at all levels, and he'd found a pattern. As we know, in governance, that's something that we do. We identify high-level patterns. And essentially, what he found was that every time that governments didn't have a shared vision and a good culture, everything went to water. Everything became a mess. What has happened here is we appear to have missed a step. We have appeared to miss the first step as a nation. We've gone straight into an amygdala response as a government. It's like FOMO, government's FOMO. We're scared of missing out. Well, we know what's the best way to deal with an amygdala response that's potentially inappropriate. I know for myself it's to pause and breathe. And that is why I am supporting Councillor Champion's amendment, because we do need to pause and breathe. There is nothing to miss out on by being careful in our approach instead of fearful. We not only need a shared vision for this nation on the use of AI, because as T.S. Eliot said nearly 100 years ago, where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we've lost in information? And we're about to add another line, potentially, which is, where is our intelligence that we're losing to AI? Because we know that our brains are a muscle. We need to think carefully about the future. We need to think what we actually need. What do we need as a nation? Do we need AI? Or perhaps, like Henry said to Liza, we need a new bucket. We need to think about structural reform. We need to think about simplifying our systems. Because why, apply the 5 whys theory, that's a governance tool. Why do we need AI? Economic, well, that's a false dichotomy. There's lots of ways that we can make money. It doesn't have to be with data centres and AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, I will now give the right of reply to Councillor Champion.
Thank you. Thank you for the support from my fellow councillors and for pointing out the sort of calm wisdom of pressing pause on this until we have some regulatory alignment and can make some strategic choices in consultation with communities around the country. I think that is the intention here. It is to be to have a good systemic approach that will suit communities and not just to sort of respond and chase the problem. So I'm very grateful for your support for those that spoke and hope very much that you'll support this.
Okay. And I'll put this motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Next, we have 9.2. I'll wait for Councillor Kent to come back in. Councillor Smith, you mind getting him? Is he? Thought you'd gone AWOL, Councillor Kent. Item 9.2.3, appointment of independent members to the Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee. Councillor Smith moving, Councillor Moylan seconding. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very excited to move this one. I think that getting the insight from a wise mix of people from our community on this very significant issue will be important. We had some great people apply. I think that the people suggested to be appointed are excellent and an excellent cross-section of our community. And so I really look forward to this being moved as is, and I look forward to the engagement and to see what fantastic results can come from it. Thank you.
Councillor Molan.
Mr Mayor, I request that this council moves into a closed session pursuant to section 10A2A of the Local Government Act. The basis for this, Mr Mayor, is information has come to my attention regarding the Finance Committee which involves personal matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors that need to be discussed. And I want to be clear that this is not, I'm not casting any aspersions on any of the applicants to the committee, but there are some matters that need to be discussed.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just get governance to see the process here, because I don't believe... Yeah, we need a resolution, so... Yep, which Councillor Moylan's just stated her reasons and that. So do I put it to... Okay, find a seconder and then put it to a vote? Okay, a seconder for this, Councillor Russell. Okay, and then I put it straight to the vote. It's a procedural motion, correct? Okay, all those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Russell, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Folliott. Those against? Councillor Farrell, Councillor Folliott, Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. That is carried. We will go into closed session. And we'll ask the gallery to leave the room, please. Okay. Would else like to speak to this? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Finance Committee is a big step in the right direction to addressing our financial challenges in the Shire. And I certainly want the Finance Committee to succeed. Now, we have heard some matters in closed session. Thank you for all of those who spoke about that. I do want to understand, however, better the process. So I'll pause to ask a question, Mr Mayor, through you to the General Manager. Could you please, General Manager, take us through the process of selection of the independent committee members?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll summarise. The bulk of that information is actually in the report itself. But in summary, the terms of reference were resolved by the Council at the June Council meeting. The Council also, as part of the engagement process, endorsed the think tank, the financial think tank. Each councillor was provided with an opportunity to nominate a representative to participate on that financial sustainability think tank. Not every councillor took up that opportunity, as you know, but majority did. In addition, there were expressions of interest that were put out, and from that expressions of interest process, there were, I believe, 29 people who expressed interest in participating. On the day, there were some that pulled out. I attended at the beginning to do an intro. However, if you want more detail about who actually attended and how long they stayed, that Ms Perrine, the acting CFO, would be able to help you with that. From that group, because they'd spent the day together, they were provided a bit of a deep dive into the financial sustainability reports by Graham Jarvis of AEC, and also were asked then to focus on elements within the draft cost containment and productivity report. Each member of the Finance Committee was also chosen or nominated by the councillors based on their financial experience, business experience, government or non-government, or all the above. From there, at the end of the day, attendees were then asked to express, are they interested? And if so, here is the selection criteria. Please submit an application to address the selection criteria as to what skills, experience you have and what you think you'll bring to the committee. They were then shortlisted based on the selection criteria. Of those, 4 were invited in for interview. Of those 4, 3 are before you in the report. At the time of interview, they were asked questions. As per, not everyone goes through an interview process, but in life, but as per a normal interview process in terms of government. They are asked the same questions in the same way, provided the opportunity to provide responses. They were also given a practical task at the beginning. They were given 10 minutes to consider a hypothetical and then respond to that in the interview. At the end of the interview, they were offered the opportunity to add or ask anything that they wished to at the end, and a number did, and ask questions of the panel, ask questions about the council, about the process, and then I explained the process from here in terms of the report will be presented today, that we will then aim to have an induction meeting where they will, as we do, have a session on governance and good practice and ethics, code of conduct, conflicts of interest, an overview of the reporting and accountability requirements in local government, as well as the chair of the ARIC will also address the Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee. They're also advised the second meeting will be when we get into the detailed work, which will include the draft cost containment productivity report, as well as the outcomes from the community engagement ahead of the presentation of the report to the October meeting. As I said, most of that's in the report before you. I hope that suffices.
Okay, what else like Councillor Moylan?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have another question through you to the General Manager. Have any conflicts of interest been declared in this process?
General Manager.
As was mentioned in my response before, Councillor, the interview was conducted in accordance with how we conduct interviews in local government, and that includes declarations of any conflicts perceived or actual. And as you would know from your onboarding, that is a matter for individuals.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just finish my speaking, if I may. Thank you very much, General Manager, for the answers to the questions. As I said, I want this Finance Committee to succeed. We are looking at a committee that will discuss and advise on ratepayers' money and how it's spent. And the questions I've asked have no reflection on the applicants, and I thank them for applying and to volunteer their skills to this community and the Finance Committee. I won't be voting for this on the basis that I haven't seen the biographies of the applicants, and I understand there's reasons for that and for why they're not in the business paper, but I simply don't have the information before me to be able to make a decision today.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
Question to the General Manager, please. Councillor Moylan just said she hasn't seen the biographies of the applicants. I have. Has she seen them?
Is that a question for General Manager?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I can't answer whether or not Councillor Moylan has seen them. However, they were distributed to all councillors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Williams, like to speak to this? Okay, who moved? Go ahead with the question.
When, through you, Mayor Fitzpatrick, to the General Manager, when were you looking to convene the Finance Committee, and how often were you looking to convene it?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the number of times that the committee will be convened are in accordance with the terms of reference that the Council has adopted. In terms of the first meeting, it will be in a week, 2 weeks' time, and actually, apologies, 3 weeks' time, and at that time it will be the induction.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
I'd like to speak to this. I've heard many favourable comments about Council's think tank process, and people were really impressed that they were able to be heard and have that conversation with management. Will Council be provided with minutes of that session published in a business paper so we can find out the brilliant ideas that were discussed?
General Manager, this is terms of reference, I believe.
I believe Councillor Russell's referencing the finance think tank. Ms Jones.
Apologies. Yeah.
Thank you, through you, Madam General Manager. Councillor Russell, the report from the think tank, so it's not minutes, it'll be an outcomes report from the engagement. It was a deliberative engagement exercise. Will be included in the community engagements outcome report the Council will receive in October as an addendum.
Okay, I'd like to speak to this. Okay, who moved this? Apologies. Councillor Smith, would you like your right of reply? Okay, I will now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Russell, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Patrick. All those against? Councillor Moylan. Next, I will ask the Deputy to come and chair for me, please, for the next item.
Next, we have item 9.2.4, Planning Proposal PP 2025-2248, Bald Hill Estate, Cater Road, Sutton Forest. Can I have a mover for this item? Councillor Kent. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Champion. Councillor Kent.
Thank Thank you, Chair. I move the officer's recommendation. I note the officer's recommendation is consistent with the Winji Caribou Local Planning Panel's advice on this item. I think the officer's report is excellent. I want to read the first paragraph of the strategic merit component of the report. The key issue for council is not whether the land could physically accommodate some form of development, but whether proposed rezoning should be brought forward ahead of adopted and emerging growth priorities. The assessment concludes that the proposal would introduce low density, large lot outcome in a location not identified for a lease without demonstrating a strategic need, resolving infrastructure sequencing or superior planning outcome to the existing zoning. On that basis, I'm supportive of the officer's recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The document before us refers to strategy as the reason for not supporting this development. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to the General Manager, have we got any time frames around when the local housing strategy will be reviewed?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Mr McCabe, I think we're talking two things, strategic merit and then the LHS. Could you please respond?
So in relation to strategic merit, Councillor Kent profiled what is page 20 of your report in relation to why we believe there isn't strategic merit. In relation to the local housing strategies particularly, you adopted a new operational plan in June. That new operational plan states stages of review of the local housing strategy. The first stage is community consultation this year to inform a new or revised local housing strategy. And you also have the Illawarra Shoalhaven plan, which you'll be considering a submission next month, which also requires council to do reviews of strategic documents, including local housing strategy.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to this item? Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll be supporting the staff recommendation here and voting against this planning proposal. And I appreciate the analysis the team have done, particularly around the tourism point and looking at Pepper's Manor House, the associated Broughton Golf Course to the east of this site, the State Heritage Register listed Hillview Estate to the northwest. I do want to touch on the proponent's point that the proponent believes that this development will help tourism and therefore the economy. And I would never get in the way of that. However, in this case, as the business paper outlines, the existing tourism from the Manor House, Pepper's Manor House, from the golf course, and the potential tourism uplift from the refurbishment and the restoration of Hillview Estate will far outweigh, I believe, the tourism potential from this development. I had the pleasure of meeting the King's Foundation at Hillview, and I got a tour of the site along with my colleague, Councillor Russell, and I was very impressed with the management there and very impressed with their plans, and I understand the economic benefit that Hillview Estate will bring. So whilst I support tourism and local economy and I support housing more people, in this context, I agree with the staff recommendation and I'll be supporting the recommendation on this and voting against the Bald Hill Estate development.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If I can take your minds back to prior to the election, I think one of the key things that we realised our community cared about was keeping the green between and the character of the Shire. So this is a really great example of how we really need to look at planning. And I think the council staff's recommendation is an excellent and well-considered one. And so I'm very much in support of this particular motion as it stands, and I will be voting for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Russell.
I would like to thank the staff and the local planning panel for consistently applying our community's vision for the Southern Highlands. I'd also like to thank those members of our community who came and brought their local knowledge to our public forum about the flooding that occurs along the Medway rivulet and about the quality of the agricultural land that we've got in Exeter. It's basalt soil. It's beautiful. You drop something in it, and a seed, and it will grow and flourish. You've got a tree before you know it. We want to be making sure that we are protecting our prime agricultural land. We know that so many pieces have been carved up now that almost would have made it unviable. However, thanks to members of our community in the Southern Highlands initiating agri-tourism legislation, we can now ensure that we are profitably building businesses and communities around food growing. And it wins for everything. We want to hold on to our dream of regenerating our landscape, protecting our drinking water catchment. The Medway rivulet needs a lot of love. It's one of our most degraded riparian zones in the Highlands, and yet it feeds into our drinking water catchment. We need to protect that. We need to regenerate it. And what's more, it's a win for Sydney too, because guess what? When we get that right and we regenerate the landscape in areas like where this proposal is, then what happens is that we hold the water in the land. It doesn't run off and flood Sydney. So we need to be starting to look at the cost benefit and making sure that we're doing upstream interventions to protect our drinking water catchment. Because I tell you what, if we look after the area up here, I believe it's going to be a lot better value for our state government than if we're looking at downstream interventions and diversions and flooding in the Sydney Basin, because it's all connected with water. So thank you, staff, thank you, colleagues, and let's hold our positive vision, our shared vision, strong for the Southern Highlands.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Are there any further comments? Right of reply, Councillor Kent? No? Okay, I will now put this item. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Okay, our next item is item... Oh, is the Mayor coming back for this one? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to propose a procedural motion for a short break, if that's possible.
Yes, can we have a seconder for that? Councillor Duffy, all those in favour? That is Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Russell, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith and Councillor Foley. That is carried. I guess we'll have a 5-minute break. Thank you.
We next have item 9.2.5, planning proposal, Illawarra Highway and 157 Yarra Road, Mossvale. Recommendation on page 24. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Kent. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Moylan and Councillor Kent.
Great. So I would like to move the officer's recommendation. I note the officer's recommendation is consistent with the Wingie-Carriby Planning Panel's advice. And I want my screen to open up. Sorry about this. I'll come back. See you.
Okay, Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, as I mentioned in the last item, we really do need to do a comprehensive local housing strategy review. The local planning panel has raised this as well. I want to make sure, Mr Mayor, that community and developers are very clear on what our direction is. And until we do that local housing strategy review, we can't provide them that clarity. So I'm in support of housing and I'm in support of thoughtful development, and I want to make sure that we get our strategy together quickly so that we can start being clearer for developers and the community.
Okay, thank you. Would I like to speak to this? Councillor Kent, do you want to go back to you?
Thank you very much, Mayor. So what I wanted to say was, perhaps in contrast to Councillor Moylan, is that I'm actually very thankful for the current local housing strategy. We're all in this chamber really on shoulders of our forebears, and when we receive proposals like this one and the previous one, I'm very, very glad for that local housing strategy. And I'll take the meeting to the second paragraph of the officer's report regarding strategic merit of this item. While the proposal would contribute additional housing adjoining Mossvale, the subject land is not identified for residential release, and the adopted and state-endorsed local housing strategy, LHS. Council is actively implementing the adopted housing pipeline, with 4 of the 6 new living areas identified in the LHS progressing and 2 of those already being in Mossvale. The new living areas progressing are Chelsea Gardens, Kumunji, Ashbourne Estate, Barrel South, Mossvale West, Broughton Street and Robertson East. These new living areas are anticipated to deliver greater housing yields than the originally identified yields in the existing LHS. So once again, I just want to reiterate, I'm very happy with the councillor's report, and I'm also very happy that we have a robust LHS. I'm all for reviews of things, but thank goodness for that existing one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. There's no dissents, there's no right to reply. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. Item 9.2.7, Wingie-Carriby Shire Council Climate Change Adaptation Plan. Our recommendation is on page 35. Councillor, okay. Procedural motion? Sure. What's your procedural motion? Yep, we need a seconder for that. Councillor Kent. All those in favour? Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Patrick. All those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Russell, Councillor Moylan. That is carried. Councillor Champion, you had your hand up to move this item. Is it with a change or as is? Okay. Would I seconder, please? Councillor Smith. Go ahead, Councillor Champion.
Thank you. Look, I want to commend this plan to the community. I think the important thing here, we've heard presentations from Win Zero in the public forum that highlighted that there are some sort of points of contributions that the community can make, and I really believe that our best next step is to hear from the community what those changes might be to this plan. I think a climate adaptation plan for our community could not be more essential, and this is really important work, and I'm very grateful to the staff for bringing it to us and for preceding it. I think that the absolute critical role of building a resilient community over the coming decades is something that we need to take very seriously, and putting it on exhibition to get community consultation and, additional feedback on this document is really important. Something that people have already contacted me to talk about is how important social and economic infrastructure are when communities experience shocks. And I think that there are some things in here that could be explored and added, but I'm really interested in seeing that feedback from the community and in making this the strongest possible plan that it can be so that we are resilient into the future.
Thank you. Councillor Moylan and Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question through you to the General Manager. And this is not about climate change, it is about cost. Could you share with us how much we have spent with Ironbark Sustainability, the consultant, so far?
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Arthur, would you have that information available, or would you like to take that on notice?
I may need to take that on notice, but I might add is that we are a member of Sustainability Advantage, which is a state government program, and through our membership with that program, we get a certain number of consultant hours per year, and we've utilised that program to engage Ironbark for this process. So I can get a dollar figure if you wish, but the large proportion of Ironbark's engagement has been through our Sustainability Advantage membership.
Okay, we else like to speak to this? Councillor Foley? Oh, sorry, I did say Councillor Kent, then we'll go Councillor Foley.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in support of the officer's recommendation. I know that the review conducted by Ironbark Sustainability is complementary of both the previous Climate Change Adaptation Plan, or CAP, and the work done in this area to date by Council. So as a relatively, I don't know if I can say that nearly 2 years in, but as a relatively new councillor, it's reassuring, these comments are reassuring by an independent consultant. I'd like to ask the General Manager, please, through you, Mayor, in the context of the fact that we've been pursuing some of this work since about 2019, I'd like to ask what kind of additional impacts this renewed CAP may have on future budgets.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Arthur?
Okay, so a lot of that detail is mentioned in the draft. I might add a lot of the actions identified in the plan touches on how council does its business. It identifies like the climate risks and the areas that may be impacted, but it doesn't aim to duplicate like our asset management plan or any of our other plans. It integrates actions into the way we do our business. So there may not be a lot of dollar impact up front with a lot, with a lot of these actions. It's really informing the way we do our business. So it's integrating it into the way we, in the way we do our business, like any good database decision-making, risk management approach.
Thank you. Councillor Foley, then Councillor...
Just one last thing.
Go, Councillor.
Thanks. Very small thing. In the attachment, the document is just called on the front page. It's called an internal document, and I guess once it goes to the public, that should come off. That's all. Thanks.
Councillor Foley, then Councillor Russell.
So I speak in support of the officer's recommendation. When it comes to climate action, you don't have to be an expert in energy or economics to observe that bushfires and floods are getting more extreme. And we know that extreme weather events like flooding, we know what it does to the condition of our roads, while at the same time seeing what drought does to our farmers. Climate change has impacts from a global scale right down to a local level, and building in resilience for council is essential. This plan acknowledges that councils like ours have a huge role to play in climate action, but that genuine impact will come from collaborations between all levels of government, the community, private businesses, as well as individual action. And so I really encourage engagement with the adaptation plan when it goes on exhibition to help build an effective plan that really does make a difference.
Councillor Russell.
You might be surprised to hear that I don't think that we should be focusing on something called climate change. because I do believe that the climate has always changed. And frankly, it opens governance up to ridicule. I believe in focusing on solutions, and I would like to see our governance align with First Nations principles here of resilience. Because if we focus on solutions, not on problems, we actually meet everybody's needs. Sure, we might have some exacerbated effects in regards to bushfires since we took Aboriginal land management out of the system, because when they did cool burning, and actually I've had this discussion with my colleague Tess Duffy, and she knows that when you do best practice RFS, it's the same as it's always been done here. So why don't we focus our structures around that and about the solution of resilience? We know that we're getting more flooding. Sure, we're also putting a lot more development on land. We're concreting everything when we used to be allowing our earth to breathe and actually that water to go and soak into our soil and regenerate the landscape. So how about we look at really reiterating that shared vision that we keep a green between rather than saying flooding. The last point I want to say, and if I'll just be quick, is that in regards to using our resources responsibly, I think that's the key. Not being wasteful. Building footpaths. If we're passionate about what some people call climate change and I'll call fundamental resilience, then let's focus on what local government's got to do. Build footpaths to connect people and then everyone wins.
Thank you,
so that's my point.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Farrell.
Some people might be surprised that I actually agree with Councillor Russell on this. I agree with her that climate change has always been going on, and I don't believe that mankind is the total cause of climate change. And everything that we're doing to trying to change the climate in the long run will be futile. Climate will change. We can't keep associating bushfires, flooding, and so on with climate change now, saying that it's worse. We've had a history of flooding and bushfires throughout Australia's history. So while I agree that there is climate change, I don't believe that the efforts that mankind is making is going to make a difference. And at the end of the day, Australia contributes 1% of the carbon emissions, and it's actually carbon dioxide. It's become fashionable to call it carbon because people get the idea that it's this black oily stuff. But in actual fact, it's a natural gas, it's carbon dioxide, and I believe the world is in a decline of carbon dioxide at the moment. And the more carbon dioxide, the more growth we get, and that's been proven. And the more growth we get, the more oxygen we can create, and we all need oxygen to live.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Apologies. I'll just remind everyone that the minutes were reduced. I've been a bit lenient, but yeah, it's at 1:30. So when you hear that bell, wrap it up. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Interesting to have a bit of robust discussion in the chamber today. So, yes, one thing, look, I'm very much in support of this, and I agree with Councillor Champion. I think that if we need to put this out on exhibition, and I think that's a chance to get the input. I think this is a moving target, and there's never enough we can do on this particular front when it comes to climate change and how we can be more resilient. I think there's a great amount of work going on here. I will say Councillor Russell made the point that we're concreting over everything. I'm but we need more footpaths. I'd actually disagree. I don't think, thankfully, we're not concreting over everything, but we do need more footpaths. I'm happy with those. So I think it's a great start. I look forward to what the community has to say. I do think we need I'm really looking forward to some creative input on this particular plan and see what the community comes back with. So thank you to the team.
Oh, apologies. I didn't mean to do that. It wasn't cutting your minutes. I hit the wrong button. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Councillor Champion. Go ahead.
Wow, that was spicy. Climate change is a fact, and the question isn't whether or not you believe in it. The question is whether you understand it. I would like to refer to a cartoon that became very famous, probably at least 15 years ago, and there's a picture of a climate summit, and there's somebody at the front who's speaking about climate action, and on the screen behind them it says energy independence, preserve rainforests, sustainability, green jobs, livable cities, renewables, clean water and air, healthy children, etc., etc., etc. And somebody calls out from the audience saying, what if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? I think that is the perfect illustration of why climate adaptation and a plan for our council is really important, because climate adaptation is making the world better, and making the world better is climate adaptation. These things are complementary, and that's why I support this plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Russell, Councillor Moylan, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Patrick. All those against? Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, and are you abstaining? Apologies, Councillor. Oh, you're for it, okay. And then against was Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, and that is carried. 9.2.9, Kirkham Road Water Main Tender Evaluation Report. The recommendation is on page 43 of the agenda. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Foley, and a seconder. Councillor Moylan, Councillor Foley.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation and just note that it's great to see a local contractor.
Councillor Moylan.
Question through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. I noticed the amount of the tender was $67,000, well below the threshold. I'm all for transparency, but is there any reason why this particular tender is before us?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in short, when we go to tender, irrespective of the outcome, we need to report the tender outcome back to the council, in short. Thank you.
Okay, let's speak to this. Councillor Moylan.
I agree with Councillor Foley. It's great to see a local supplier from Moss Vale winning this tender, and I wish them all the best.
Terrific. Okay, Councillor Foley, no reply. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item 9.2.10, exemption from tender IT licence, subscription, maintenance and support contracts. Can I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Moylan, a seconder. Councillor Smith, Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will actually be voting against this. And what we have before us is a recommendation not to go to competitive tender for various contracts we have with various IT suppliers. And these are my reasons for voting against it. The argument that software is embedded across organisations and is therefore too difficult for an organisation to extricate themselves from a software supplier, I don't accept, because many small, medium, large and even multinational corporations are going to tender with the same sort of challenges. Secondly, the argument of business continuity, having a gap in service if you go to tender, I do not accept. The reason, the way you can resolve that issue is by planning ahead. The argument that the cost of the tender is a reason for not going to a tender, I don't accept. The savings that come from a tender, the point is, will outweigh the cost of going through the tender process. And fourthly, the argument that this tender will be a lot of work and very difficult, I do not accept as a reason not to go to tender. Our role is to drive the best value for ratepayers' dollar, and this is part of the job. So I strongly recommend that we do go to competitive tender.
Thank you. Councillor Russell and Councillor Kent.
I would like to congratulate my colleague, Councillor Moylan, on her concise analysis of why we need to go to tender on this. In that confidential dossier, I didn't see further information about the maintenance, the support, the upgrades and the licensing. I saw the subscriptions. I didn't feel like I had sufficient information. I know we can do better. And what's more, we need to ensure that we stay agile. We need to test the market at every point. These are considerable amounts of our money. And I have faith in our council team that we have really efficient systems in place to ensure that we can put out a tender and manage it effectively and efficiently. That's what we're here to do. We're here to do business properly on behalf of our community, on behalf of our ratepayers. I would like to congratulate Councillor Moylan because she really did a comprehensive précis of why we need to be due diligent at any point when we're talking about such large sums of money, and market conditions do change. Each time we should be testing the market.
Thank you. Councillor Kent.
I'd like to speak in support of the officer's recommendation. I disagree with the viewpoints of Councillor Moylan and Councillor Russell. We are talking about IT ecosystems here where things are interrelated. It's not like buying a truck or some bitumen or a road sign. There's an interdependence between each of these things, and to re-tender all of them or some of them would lead to significant project requirements, and sometimes those requirements actually cost more than the licenses themselves to do the testing, the user acceptance testing, etc., to realign the ecosystem. Can I ask a question of the General Manager, please, through you, Mayor, to just give some flavour to why changes to the IT ecosystem are not like buying a truck? Thanks.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll ask Mr Harb, our Chief Information Officer, to explain in plain English, or not plain English, the interdependencies and how the IT systems interrelate. Thank you, Mr Harb.
Through you, General Manager. Thank you. So, if I get the question correctly, is why is there interdependencies between the systems? I'd like to refer to a couple of the points that are in the report, and especially in the addendum, in the attachment itself. Is there's a couple of products in there that are around cybersecurity. If we were to stop payment or cease subscription of any one of them pieces of systems, we would then open ourselves from a security perspective and leave ourselves open. One of them being our firewalls, which there's a hardware component, and then on top of that sits the subscription. So the hardware has been in place for over 3 years now, and as part of any new cybersecurity implementation, there's an ongoing subscription fee. And that is why there's an interdependency on the systems within the council, that if we turn off one of these systems or we cease to pay, we will leave ourselves open and susceptible to the broader world.
Councillor Smith and Councillor Russell.
Thank you. A question through you, Mr Mayor, of the General Manager. There were several points that were raised by Councillors Moylan and Russell around this. I just was wondering if you'd like to just challenge some of those points or have a contrary view as to the reasoning behind, and I'm guessing it's for the CIO.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and yes, it is for the CIO. There's a reason why we have him. Hi T, I'm okay, but I'm not the expert. So the points that Councillor Moylan raised were, just to assist, software's embedded, and the issue of it's too difficult to extricate. What's the thinking around that? Business continuity and disruption to subscriptions or servers, cost of going to tender, and then the tender assessment. There may have been a fifth one, Councillor Moylan, if you could refresh me.
So business continuity, the argument that the tender is a lot of work, that was in the business paper.
I've covered them. Thank you, Mr Harb.
Through you, General Manager. So one of the products in the list is the integration into the planning portal. So to go to market would not deem any further outcomes, and we would potentially end up with the same product that we have now. We've gone through the process earlier, and we do have a subscription, and if we were to turn that subscription off, that integration will cease to continue. Another product in there is the platform that we use for our e-learning and our HRP components, so our human resourcing. The reason why we wouldn't go to tender is because we do have another ERP solution that we're moving all our products over into. So we're just seeking, obviously, as part of this is an exemption, so we can continue on with the contract to give us some time so that we can move into the ERP solution that we've got a 10-year contract with. So I'm hoping that answers the question.
Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor Fitzpatrick, to the General Manager, how much time do we have before these subscriptions expire?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, before I go to Mr Harb, Ms Jones, could you explain, because of the value of subscriptions, why we need to take this path in terms of the tender exemption? Sure. Thank you.
So if I'm just reading your question, it's around why we've gone to exemption. So it's not only the value, the individual annualised value, but it's the value over the life of the subscription. What I will say is, just because we're seeking an exemption from tender does not mean that we're not following other procurement requirements in the background, which includes, and I think the CIO in his report has touched on this, so it looking at emerging technologies, strong contract management, the same requirements apply, and looking at best value opportunities when and if they arise. As the CIO has already indicated, there are a number of those solutions that are being put forward for exemption because they are the only one, or they have been customised and created just for Wingecarribee. So there is no alternative. In terms of the expiry date, I think the most immediate and critical concern which has triggered the report and the thinking, and whilst it is immediate, it's the website, so Council's corporate website. So there's a difference between procurement for ongoing support and maintenance and licensing as opposed to procurement for a new website solution. It's a very different proposition, in which case we would run a separate tender process.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
So my question to the General Manager, and I've got a couple of questions. So the first one is, how long until these subscriptions expire?
General Manager.
Mr Harb, are you able to respond to that, or would you like to take on notice?
Through you, General Manager, now I can respond. The most, I guess the one that's coming to fruition shortly is the website itself, and the rest would follow over the next 6 to 8 months.
And the business paper refers to quite a number of costs. However, the only cost that we got to see in the dossier was the subscription amount. So was there a reason, or are you telling me that that's all bundled in together?
General Manager.
Councillor Russell, would you mind just explaining a little bit more so we can help you?
Council staff are asking us to approve an exemption from tender requirements for the provision of maintenance, support, upgrades, licensing and subscriptions for the business systems, websites, software tools and platforms identified in attachment 1. However, in terms of the costings attached to those subscriptions, councillors were only provided with the costing for the subscriptions, not, and I apologise. I thought that this was part of a Tech 1 system, that's my learning curve. However, council staff weren't able to assist me with, for example, how much additional cost was spent in the last financial year on those other items.
So just to clarify, what's your question, your direct question?
Could I have a rough idea, it's just why weren't we provided with the other costs associated and just only the subscription cost to give us a picture of how much we're spending in this? To what extent we have a client capture situation?
General Manager.
Ms Jones?
I think the simple answer is because we're only asking councillors to do the pretender exemption for these particular subscriptions.
Well, sorry, through you, Mayor Fitzpatrick, there's also the additional costs of maintenance, support, upgrades. Now, if that's all in the subscription, then please tell me, but sometimes I know that training and maintenance is additional.
General Manager.
Sorry, Mr Harb, it is all covered in the subscriptions?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Thank you, that answers my initial question.
Thank you. Would else like to speak to this? Okay, who moved this, sorry? Councillor Moylan. Did anyone speak against?
Moylan and Russell.
Anyone speak for?
Kent.
Okay, Councillor Moylan, right to reply.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At the outset, I'll say I acknowledge that there's complexities and it's difficult to go to tender for software. However, I submit, Mr Mayor, that the work involved in preparing for a massive rate rise in the form of a special rate variation is a lot more work for the residents than what it would be for us to go to tender to get better value for money. I'll thank you to those who contributed to the debate. I'll take them in order. Councillor Kent, thank you. I'm not sure if I can help you on your point with buying trucks or ecosystems, but I understand your point. The point again about business continuity and switching subscriptions off, this gap in service can be dealt with by planning a tender and also by transitioning to a new supplier. I know that because I've done that. Nextly, I understand that there are challenges with a category like this. However, I can speak with authority because with the multinational corporation all around the world, they are doing exactly this. So it can be done even if software has been developed for the client's needs. Everybody else can do it. I think council can do it too. Nextly, without a tender and looking at other other procurement initiatives, we're missing out on the biggest point, which is the leverage of when the contract ends. We need to take this moment, Mr Mayor, and drive best value for ratepayers' money instead of jumping to a massive rate rise for ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I will now put this motion. All those in favour? We have Councillor Chairman, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those against? We have Councillor Russell, Councillor Moylan. Next, we have item 9.3.1, Development Assessment Progress. Do I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Foley, a seconder. Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley.
Okay, sorry, I was just waiting for that to come up. Okay, thank you. I'd just like to say this is an amazing result. For the month of July, the average DA time in Wingecarribee was 55 days. That's more than 6 times faster than this time 2 years ago. When looking at the league table, there are 13 councils in first place, and we're sitting equal 17th in the state out of 128 councils. So to be clear, that's nowhere near last place, bottom of the table, coming in last position. It's worth noting and celebrating. I hope that the staff who have worked so hard for the last 2 years know how much their efforts are appreciated, not just by the councillors, but most importantly by the residents and businesses who can get on with their project or development without delay. And that is what this is really about. There's been a lot of discussion and commentary around DAs both in this chamber and other forums, especially online. And I would really like to draw people's attention to the facts around what DA processing time is really like now in Wingecarribee. So when talking about DAs, or if somebody's thinking of submitting a DA, note that the latest statistics show that it took an average of 55 days. and that isn't Wingecarriby's measurements. Those statistics come from the New South Wales Planning Department. So well done, Mr McCabe and the team.
So I speak to this. Councillor Moylan, then we'll go Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Great result, and it is testimony to the work of the team. Thank you to the Director, Mr McCabe, and the team. And it's also testimony to the action plan from the Minister, the Honourable Paul Scully, and also credit to the State Member of Parliament, Judy Hannan, for her advocacy in Parliament on this point. The main thing is we have achieved a great result for the residents. The next challenge, of course, is the Section 68 certificates, because without water and sewer, you cannot go on to build with your DA approval. So once again, in wrapping up, thank you to the Director and his team. Thank you to the Minister, Honourable Paul Scully. Thank you to the Member of Parliament, Judy Hannan. Now let's continue with the Section 68 certificates.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd also like to say well done to Mr McCabe and the team. And now you've got DA sorted, what next? It's a question.
Actual question. General Manager.
Yeah, thank you. Just before I hand over to Mr McCabe, I just would like to acknowledge that the progress and the pathway that the whole team, and I am not specifically talking about the development and assessment and regulatory services team, I'm talking about customer service, I'm talking about IT, I'm talking about the environment team, all the referral officers in the organisation, from the engineers to the tree officers to the water and sewer teams, they have all contributed. And Mr McCabe and Mr Shalito, who was here a year before him, there was a path that they were on. And in this chamber, I said to this council that I had full confidence in the team that we would get there, and it wasn't going to be a quick fix. What they have done, and what we have done as an organisation, the planners, but also all the other staff that have supported the planning team, is deliver a professional response. The DAs, there's a higher level of quality than what there has been before in terms of the assurance, in terms of the conditioning, in terms of the care and the assessment than what there has. You would have heard in this chamber previously we've talked about half roads being delivered as a result of planning decisions. That has changed. You think about the work that Jess Linton's team, not a DA planner, but her team are doing important strategic work through the DCP to make it easier for the community, industry and our planners. So this is not to take away from Mr Shalito or Mr McCabe, but this is to acknowledge the broader team effort over at least the last 3 years and the positive perseverance that the organisation has faced in constant criticism. I acknowledge the Minister and his work with his action plan 12 months ago. Mr McCabe, when he was interviewed for the role, part of his practical was to actually present an action plan. Part of the reason why I got the job. So it was well in train. I also appreciate the focus. It was well in train. Mr McCabe, is there anything else you wish to add?
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, you, Council, adopted an action plan yourselves in April 2025. That followed a goal that was set in October 2024 from a mayoral minute. So not only is it about staff, it's also about you as councillors sponsoring how we delivered it and sending a message to the community on what goals we could achieve. We've achieved those goals. We had a goal that was reset in October 2025, September, October. So we'll be reporting on that in a few months' time. And there are still a few actions in your action plan that are still to be delivered, such as the DCP, etc. So my response to you in a concise way is there's a whole shire out there.
Councillor Kent. Councillor Farrell, then
You
Councillor
go.
Kent.
Question through you, Mr Mayor, to the General Manager. And it's probably a rhetorical question. The progress that has been made on these DAs was well on the way without any intervention from Minister Scully. I don't think his intervention was really a contributing factor to the good work that the Mr McCabe and his team and John did. I think his intervention was probably fairly late in the process. I think the system was well underway before that. And just to another point, the position where we are on the table, I believe if there weren't so many councils with little or no DAs to process, we would be higher up the scale. We get put down a little bit on that ladder because there are councils with 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever DAs that get through very quickly because they don't have any complications and they haven't got many to do. So, yeah, I'm not really asking you to answer that. I'm just, it's
take it
just
as
an
your speaking
observation.
time.
Right. It's an observation. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know, but I think I'm right. Once I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken.
Councillor Kent.
Councillor Farrell, I'm going to be a bit more direct because I can. This achievement is down to our Mayor and the Director of Communities in Place and his staff, and there's been some headwinds against the progress here, including from some councillors in this chamber over the course of the 2 years. I think Councillor Moylan trying to give credit to my comrade, the Honourable Paul Scully, is misplaced. I also don't think that the member for Wallandilly did too much. The work was done by the Mayor in setting the direction when he first came in, and the Director of Communities in Place in the face of headwinds from some councillors and even some in the community. Thank you.
Councillor Russell.
I'd like to thank the staff for their work doing their job. I wasn't going to speak to this. However, I've been a bit disappointed by some of the comments that have been made by my colleagues who have found fault with the fact that Councillor Moylan and myself had to point out that there needed to be a clear delineation between the role of the Mayor and the role of management, that hadn't been demonstrated, and that we consistently need in this chamber to make sure that we are holding staff to account for our community.
Just pause there. We have a point of order.
Misrepresentation. I don't know where Councillor Russell is getting the inference that nobody referred to Councillor Russell.
Yeah,
what's she talking about?
I'll uphold that, Councillor.
To help Councillor Kent, what I am talking about is the allusions you have made to the fact that Councillor Moylan and I have been doing our job representing our community.
Councillor, I'm going to call it order. Councillor Kent didn't refer to you by name.
Yep. And I didn't refer to Councillor Moylan by name either, except to comment on her comments about Minister Scully and the member for Wallandilly.
Okay. Councillor Russell.
I would also like to thank the Minister for his oversight, because we all know that when we have independent oversight, it actually supports everyone to be high functioning in their role and responsibility. Doesn't matter whether you're staff, doesn't matter whether you're councillors, it's actually a helpful quality. It is why we need a clear delineation between the role of the Mayor and the role of the governing body and the role of management, and our job is to watch the trends, is to ask the questions, is to acknowledge staff doing their job, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Champion.
Thanks. I'd like to bring this conversation back to where we were a minute ago, which was acknowledging hard work, having a moment of congratulation, having a moment of celebration, and a lot has been said, and I just want to reiterate that and say a heartfelt thank you to all the staff for their work and to the senior management for your leadership.
Councillor Duffy.
I also wasn't going to comment on this. I just realised it's the first time I've spoken tonight. Hi, everyone. But I just wanted to say that there is discussion about the Minister's action plan and what individual state representatives have achieved. But I think the evidence before us tonight demonstrates that Council's own team has been doing the work on the ground, and they really do deserve recognition for that. So I just wanted to say congratulations, guys. This is amazing.
Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Kent. When you say, despite headwinds from some councillors, could you please elaborate on your point? And a reminder, respectful debate is very important.
Councillor Kent, would you like to answer that?
No.
Well, I'll speak. I will say the staff should be very, very, very proud of themselves, and they should thank nobody but themselves. Would else like to speak to this? Okay, with that, right a reply to Councillor Kent.
No.
Sorry, right a reply. Okay, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. 9.3.2, practical pathways to accelerate fleet transition. Remover in Councillor Champion. Is that as is? Yep. And a seconder, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Champion.
Thank you. I am delighted to see the good news contained in this analysis. The preliminary modelling shows that transitioning our light fleet to renewable sources can achieve fuel savings of approximately 151,840 litres of fuel per year, which translates to a gross saving of approximately $286,978 annually. Brilliant. Beyond the financial benefits, the progress is impressive. Our light fleet is already 33% hybrid or battery electric, achieved through a sensible replacement program rather than forced expenditure. We have already successfully transitioned a significant portion of our small plant equipment. Well, you know, it's not a lot, but it's there, it's happening, and we're improving noise, amenity, worker safety in the process. And overall, Council has already achieved a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from our 2015 baseline, keeping us firmly on track for our targets. So, look, I'm just very pleased to see this. I think this is an important work, and I want to extend a sincere thank you to the staff, particularly Manager Shy Presentation, Adam Mills, and the Service and Project Delivery team, led by Mr McAllister, for the rigour they've applied to the process, and the report proves that environmental stewardship and financial sustainability can and should go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Just like to speak to this, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'd also like to commend this. This is a fantastic report, and I think the only one thing I would say is that this sort of progress won't stop here. So I hope to see this continue and it focus on fleet and small plant as time goes on, and also as technology improves and charging infrastructure improves. So well done to the team.
Councillor Farrell.
I'm going to be an outsider here. I'm against electric vehicles anyway. So I don't think we should be transitioning at all. So I'm against it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moylan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question through you to the General Manager. Have I understood correctly that staff are recommending not to adopt targets in this, to take a holistic approach to purchasing light electric light vehicles?
General Manager.
To you, Mr McAllister.
Through you, General Manager. No, that is not the case. You may remember back in the June meeting, I believe, as part of the adoption of the business papers, there were specific targets put in place for this year's operational plan and also a target of, I believe, 40% for next year's operational plan. So those targets are still in place, and we will certainly be focusing on achieving those through the light fleet replacement program due to the maturity of the market, and then leverage whatever opportunities present themselves as the technology matures for our larger fleet.
Okay, I'd like to speak to this. Okay, right, a reply to Councillor Champion. Okay, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? Councillor Champion, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Foley, Kent, Smith, Fitzpatrick. All those against? Councillor Russell, Moylan and Farrell. Item 9.3.3, Delivery Program 6. Councillor Kent, you're flagging your hand up. I'll get you to move it. A seconder. Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent.
Now, I'm speaking in support of the officer's recommendation. I acknowledge we do get a lot of material in the business papers a week before the meeting, but there's some real gems hiding away. Basically, this progress report, and sometimes people don't get very excited by progress reports, I just want to thank the staff for the good work reflected in this report and all of the good things that are actually jumping off the pages. I'm just going to name 3 of them. The Summer of Fun in our pools last summer was an excellent program. I didn't bomb in any of the pools, but it was an excellent program. The Strengthening Community Safety through participation in Southern Highlands Domestic Violence Forum and supporting the Love Bites Respectful Relationship program is another excellent thing. Finally, encouraging intergenerational connection through the autumn school holiday program just passed, where young people 13 to 16 years old collaborated with the Robertson Community Technology Centre and the Robertson's Men's and Women's Shed. They're just 3 examples of how our staff go well beyond the kind of vanilla delivery of council's operations. And on behalf of the Shire, I would really like to thank you for the things that they're doing in the report and just going above and beyond in delivering the services. It makes our job easy. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Russell.
I've got a question before I speak through you, Mayor Fitzpatrick, to the General Manager. In regards to the title of the delivery program, it's a detail, but I just spotted it. Is that right that we're planning a delivery program into the next term of council?
General Manager.
Ms Jones.
That's correct. That's how the integrated planning and reporting framework is built, so that the next council inherits the last year of your delivery program while they build their own.
Thank you for that. I was reading through that and I noticed that this is another question, Mayor Fitzpatrick. I was reading through it. I noticed that of all the roads in the Shire for gravel resheeting, there was a road in Exeter selected, and I've used that road often over the years. How are we demonstrating that we're consistently applying our method that we use to prioritise road repair?
I don't understand that question. You can say that. General Manager.
Yep, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr McAllister, if you could please assist Councillor Russell in terms of how we prioritise roadworks and the methodology and how we ensure we're keeping to that. Thank you.
Through you, General Manager. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to explain this simply, because it is not often a simple process, because there are a number of factors that actually go into every decision. If we're talking about gravel roads in particular, we'll take a combination of the maintenance cycles that it's received. We'll take a combination of the actual condition that it is in, its deterioration rate based upon maintenance cycles and the types of condition. We'll look at traffic volumes or usage. We'll look at speeds of the road. We'll look at gravel loss or the potential for gravel loss. We'll look at safety elements of the road, whether that is vegetation, whether that is drainage, whether that is corrugations and a number of things. That will all form a risk-based decision on which roads are prioritised over others. Separate to that, there may be some complicating factors where works are performed as preventative. So although roads may not seem to be necessarily in need over or in higher need over others, they're done as a preventative because of the lower costs associated acting now on that road will preserve the road and deliver a lower cost outcome over the life of it and deliver the best value for the community.
Okay, Councillor Russell.
Through you, Mayor Fitzpatrick, to the General Manager, am I right in thinking, and I believe this will be a question for the Director, am I right in thinking that this particular section of the road is one where the community had actually asked if we could lower the speed limit because people were ending up running off the road, and he was concerned that if we allowed a faster speed limit there, then council would be liable due to the condition of the road?
What is the road?
It's Old Exeter Road in Sutton Forest for gravel resheeting. I'm just trying to find out if we made any representations at the Traffic Committee about lowering the speed.
I just got a point of order first.
We're getting into minutiae.
Look, I'll get this question answered and then I'm going to get us back on track to the delivery program.
To help, it's about community safety, so I was just, and also council's liability.
General Manager, can we just answer this last one and we'll get back on track, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We'll take it on notice. Thank you.
Councillor Russell, you want to speak to this?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, would else like to speak to this? Councillor Foley?
Just briefly, I'd like to speak in favour of this item and reiterate what Councillor Kent said. Sometimes there are, quite often there are little gems within our papers. And this one in particular, I think is really important because it answers the question when residents are wondering, what does council actually do beyond collecting the bins and making sure that water comes out of the tap? And speaking of water, we've seen in this report, we've had the Barrel Sewer Treatment Plant upgrade. And with roads in particular, I couldn't actually believe my eyes when I read that there were 5,689 potholes filled between January and June. So, that's pretty impressive. And really, this is how we are working towards our North Star step by step to achieve our goal of becoming the most livable place in New South Wales.
Okay. Right of reply to, who do I have down? Councillor Kent, would you like right of reply?
Only to say wonderful words, Councillor Foley.
Okay. I now put this motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 9.3.4, investment reports, July 2026. Mover in Mr. Councillor Kent. Sorry about using everyone's first name. Seconder in Councillor Smith. And go ahead, Councillor Kent.
I move the officer's recommendation.
Would else like to speak to this?
Investment?
Yep.
I have a question through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. With the uncertain financial markets at this time, are we comfortable with our cash flow forecasts?
General Manager?
Yes.
Okay, any further questions?
Where can councillors or the public find a copy of our investment strategy?
General Manager?
Through you, Mr Mayor, on the council's website, we have the investment policy, and that is how we as an organisation make decisions. That policy also pays reference to the minister's orders as well on the website.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor Fitzpatrick, to the General Manager, the policy also makes reference to an investment strategy, and I'm just wondering if that's a red herring. It notes a couple of items in the policy that are from the investment strategy, but it isn't the investment strategy.
General Manager?
I'll take it on notice, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to speak to this. Okay, I will now put this motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We have Councillor Champion. Is that right? Would you like to move your motion?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
I would like to speak to 9.4.1, and it wasn't listed in the items of exception.
Committee minutes.
Local transport forum meeting.
I believe that went through by exception, Councillor Moylan? Yep. That went through by exception. Okay, Councillor Champion, would you like to move your motion, and is it coming as is? Okay, I will get a seconder for this. Councillor Kent, Councillor Champion.
Thank you. Australia is experiencing a housing crisis. We all know it, and it's not going away unless every level of government works together to tackle the problem. Our shire is no different. On average, we might be wealthier than other regional areas, but there is rising inequality, and while the rich get richer, the people who do the jobs that aren't the best paid, but are the most essential, are being more and more squeezed. People are finding it hard to secure housing that meets their needs, including key workers, young people, older women, single-parent families, people escaping domestic and family violence, and low-income earners. As the Shire continues to grow, ensuring that essential workers and local families can continue to live in our community is critical to its social and economic well-being. This issue has been important to me for a long time. I don't know many people my age and younger who haven't been touched by the housing crisis and experienced rental or housing stress at some point in their lives. They have families, and those families have it tough because they can't get a foothold in a wildly overpriced market. Access to safe, appropriate housing is especially close to my heart because of the role it plays in helping women and their families escaping from domestic violence. According to Anglicare, in the last decade, the cost of leaving a violent relationship has surged by 71%, and a lot of that is due to housing costs. But I want to offer some local data. In Wingecarribee, 20% of renting households, 20% of renting households are experiencing rental stress. Sorry, 27. But there are areas where things are harder than others. Oh no, really? We've only got a minute and a half.
Councillor, I'll move a procedural motion that you get a further 3 minutes. Could I get a seconder? Councillor Smith, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. In these papers alone that we've looked at today, we can see in Bundanoon that rental stress is over 40%. Argyle Housing, the primary provider of affordable housing in our shire, have sent me their current waiting list, and it gives us a window into the scale of the challenge. 155 people looking for a one-bed home, 186 looking for 2 beds, 47 for 3 beds, and 5 families looking for 4-bedroom homes. A total of almost 400 people on waiting lists just with Argyle alone. So what can we do about it? We can put in place a strategy to improve affordable housing in our region. And it's clear, I think it's clear, that we need to do this now. At our last council meeting, I tried to shoehorn some affordable housing amendments into our planning proposals, and they weren't successful. And the advice from staff was that we don't have the guiding policies in place to do that now. It became very apparent to me that this is an immediate problem. We also had a forum with Business Southern Highlands where affordable housing came up as a serious problem for local employers. I've since done some reading and realised that there have been recent calls from housing providers to act now as the problem is getting worse. We've already committed to an affordable housing strategy in the longer term, but what I'm asking for is a recommendation from staff for a strategy to be acted on and an interim policy to guide negotiations in the meantime. I haven't suggested any percentages here, and I know that this recommendation was raised in the forum earlier by Mr. Killich, but I have asked for proposed figures and targets to be brought forward for consideration when the interim policy comes back to the chamber. That will give us an opportunity to debate what that target would look like if this comes back to us in the next few months. Other LGAs have done this for a long time. Griffith, Randwick, Shoalhaven and Lismore all have various affordable housing targets and partnerships with providers, and we can see more of those around Australia. But I wanted to note some of the internationally ambitious councils that have what they've done as well. Barcelona requires 30% affordable homes in new developments. Paris is working towards a goal of 40%. Vienna already has 60% affordable housing. Now, we're not a European city, but we can be optimistic and ambitious, and we can put in place measures that will help the community who need it, people in our community who need it. We want people in this region to be housed in comfort and dignity. This is a strategic approach that council can take to help make that more possible, both right now and in the longer term.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Champion, I think this is a challenging issue, and I think that this is a really well-considered notice of motion on an issue that I would have assumed would be more of a state government issue. So I really commend the work that's been done on this. I think our community has been known as a kind and caring community. I think one of the great things is that we've always had socioeconomic diversity, and I think for us to be a healthy, thriving community per our CSP, we need to have affordable housing. So I think this is well considered. I think it's smart. I also love the approach that we're now starting to look to be, as you said, more optimistic and ambitious, and to look to overseas, not just within Australia. And so I think it's time to look forward. I think we need to be bold. We've got a great community. Let's try and advocate for something as positive as this.
Councillor Kent, then we'll go to Councillor Farrell.
I'd like to speak in support of this motion and congratulate Councillor Champion on this excellent work and her excellent collaboration with the staff to bring this before us. This motion is aligned to actions in our delivery plan of 2025 to 29, and also one of our 4 key focus areas as a council during our term, which is support for families and young people. I do agree with Mr. Kilic in the public forum that we need to get going, and and it's really wonderful that Councillor Champion has brought this to the forefront, and we need to get going on this. And I'm aware there's some comments about there's some state and probably some federal input into this. I believe I'm very actually proud. I don't do this very often in this chamber, but I am wearing a red tie. I'm very proud of the work that the federal Albanese Labor government is doing and the work that the state Labor government under Minns is doing. But I think we need to push it as much as we can from our end. So there may be some saying you need to, it's more of a state thing. We need to wait for the state. I don't believe we wait for anybody in life. You do it yourself. You push up, and if some comes down, then you join together. And I congratulate Councillor Champion on this excellent motion. Thanks.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be honest, this one is personal for me. My family is one of those families who is struggling with the cost of living and the cost of housing in the place we call home. I was born and raised here, and I want my children to have the same opportunity to live in this community if that's what they choose. We shouldn't get to the point where the only people who can afford to live here are the people moving into the area with significant existing wealth. I don't have a magic solution, and I don't think council does either, but doing nothing isn't a solution. This motion simply asks us to properly investigate what we can do, and I think that's responsible, and I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Mollem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Champion for the leadership you have shown once again and on this very important matter. I do have an amendment to make, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, I got the words to that, please.
So point number 4. Write to the Minister for Housing and Homelessness advocating for the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice to allocate more funding to the Highlands Community Centre, and point 5, Council agree to meet with the Lydia's Legacy, Southern Highlands Homelessness Inc., to consider their model and the inverted commas tiny homes pilot inverted commas program of the Shellharbour Council. And I'll speak to that, Mr Mayor.
We'll get firstly, do you accept that change, Councillor Champion? Okay, that has become the motion. You can speak to the whole motion if you like, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, congratulations and thank you to Councillor Champion for taking the lead on this.
Sorry, did you already speak to the motion? Sorry to interject. Proceed.
Homelessness is a reality, and we have heard from Mr Paul Riley in the public forum. You can take it from me that Mr Paul Riley has seen for himself families living in cars in Coles car park. So it is a desperate situation and we must do something now. The amendment I've made complements, I believe, Councillor Champion's notice of motion. It is very action-based. Currently, the Highlands Community Centre are spending a lot of their rent, a lot of their budget on rent for alternative premises. They have been moved from Stafford Cottage, as we know, because we are undertaking refurbishments of Stafford Cottage. And so their budget is going to rent and less of it is going to help people. The Highlands Community Centre do wonderful work for the homeless and we must support them. We need to advocate to the Department of Communities and Justice to give them more funding so that they can spend more of their time on helping the homeless in our shire rather than paying rent. Secondly, we heard from Lydia's Legacy. They are a grassroots organisation, as we heard. Now, Mr Paul Riley was very humble in the way he presented the work that they do. May I ask for an extension of time, Mr Mayor? Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do appreciate it. Lydia's Legacy Southern Highlands is doing a lot of great work to address the homelessness issue. And as Mr Paul Riley said, a lot of it is in the hands of the private sector and landowners. He explained the model. Basically, the only thing that they need is to get approval of having tiny homes on private landowners' property. And Lydia's Legacy is working with many service support providers to the homelessness to ensure a holistic solution here. So all I am asking for in this amendment is for Council to meet with Mr Paul Riley and his team to understand their model more fully and to consider Shellharbour Council's current program where they are looking at tiny homes not requiring a DA, which Lydia's Legacy believes will instantly solve the issue of homelessness in our shire.
Councillor Russell.
Start again, shall we? I would like to thank Councillor Champion for this champion effort. It really is good. Wish we had really gotten on board with it a while ago. It is true that life can throw curveballs to any of us. You never know what's going to happen. And before you know it, you're where you never thought you'd be and you don't have a roof over your head. And I tell you what, I know that being homeless, it's not just about having a roof over your head either. It's actually about having your own space. Having one's own space is the first step to dignity. So I would really like to commend this initiative and say, yes, we can do this. We can be kind, as Councillor Smith says, we can be caring, and we can establish the infrastructure, and not only in our policy development and in our strategies, but the infrastructure in our legislation that supports diverse housing options for our community at such a critical time when we know that families have got their backs up on the wall, to the wall. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Farrell.
First of all, I'll say I'll vote for this, but I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Champion's passion for this. I'll chuck a little curveball in. Who's going to pay for it? Somebody's got to pay for this. If you're going to have affordable housing, somebody's got to pay for it. And unless the state and federal governments chip in and make it affordable, I can't see developers and builders building or developing land and selling it at a cost less than what it cost them to do it. Now, you might say, all right, they do 10% of it and they sell it at a cheaper rate. To get their margin, and their margin's not very big, developers, and despite what we might all think here, developers and builders don't make a big margin. They make big money because they do a lot of it, but per building, per development, their margin's quite small, and it can be down as far as low as 5%. And in some cases, in building a house, it could be even lower than that. So I can't see. Can I have a bit more time?
Yeah, how long? A 2-minute procedure. How about we just take time back to 3 minutes? President seconder in Councillor Smith. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Go ahead, another minute and a half.
I'm on a roll here.
Got another minute and a half to roll on.
Now I've lost track of what I was saying. Yeah, all right. I think you got the idea.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Champion. Yep, to Jim.
Sorry, I was just waiting for the microphone.
Sorry, it's not Jim,
Through
it's
you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor, a question for the General Manager. To elucidate the point that Councillor Farrell is making, how can we as councillors negotiate with developers for affordable housing, and what leverage do we have to enable that?
General Manager.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start, and Mr. McCabe will probably add. In a previous role, we had 27 affordable housing units that were dedicated through a VPA, a voluntary planning agreement, and work's been done in that space now that we have Ms. Linton in the manager's role, manager strategic outcomes role. So there are different planning mechanisms that can be used, but that is just one way. And then we've heard about different models tonight. I'm aware of the Shellharbour model. The director at Shellharbour worked here. He was the previous manager strategic outcomes, and fabulous. And he's discussed it's a pilot, 2-year pilot project in Shellharbour that they're implementing. See how it goes. And I've forgotten Paul's surname. But Paul is a neighbour, and I see him every morning walking as he waves at me as I head off to work. So, that model's another interesting model. But Mr. McCabe, is there anything else that you'd like to add in terms of VPAs or developments? Thank you.
For you, General Manager, in relation to developers and delivery and feasibility and, there's a cost for development, and the more requirements on a developer, the more costs. But one thing I'll make clear is once a developer has an approval, it's up to them to determine the level of finish. And that's really something that an affordable housing scheme can change. Like the level of finish is generally in response to the consumer. And a lot of our consumers like a good level of finish. So that's one thing that you can actually do through these types of arrangements, whether it be through an affordable housing scheme, through an affordable housing provider or manager. It's obviously speccing the outcome, okay? And that's beyond planning controls. Another thing we can do, obviously VPAs are at the forefront, and there was a comment from the public forum around you missed that opportunity. I totally disagree. The VPA opportunity related to planning proposals that were before you are still to come. So you have that opportunity. And then the important piece is the rolling program, particularly under DCP. Now, a lot of housing can be delivered through exempt and complying development these days, so it circumvents the DCP. But the DCP, if you put in certain conditions around size and arrangements, you can deliver more yield simply through design, let alone uplift. But the other point I'll make is the housing SEP refers to infill housing, and it refers to amendments to height and FSR. So a lot of what you see isn't directly associated with infill, and often there's no amendment to height or FSR on our planning proposals. That's something we have to look at as well in relation to, again, the DCP rolling program, of whether we transfer certain controls out of a DCP and into the LEP, which might give it more strength for those type of triggers in the housing set.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Foley.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Champion, for bringing this notice of motion. It's timely, it's well thought out, and it's highly relevant, so thank you. I think housing people in comfort and dignity is driving this and looking for meaningful ways to address a long-term challenge. And we are capable of compassion in delivering housing security to those who need affordable housing, and this notice of motion to examine and explore those options is really important because it has the potential to change people's lives for the better. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Chairman, would you like to reply? Go ahead.
I would like to, offer a heartfelt thanks to those of you who've spoken in favour of this, and especially Councillor Duffrey for your personal experience and that perspective. I also welcome Councillor Moylan's contributions, particularly to advocating for the Highlands Community Centre, which provides us with very important services in the area. And I do note that meeting with an organisation such as Lydia's Legacy may be interesting and revealing, but it's not necessarily a commitment of any specific kind, and that other meetings with other providers will no doubt be necessary. But I would also like to offer a big thanks to Strategic Outcomes Manager Jess Linton for her support in bringing this text to the chamber, and to the staff, the planning staff, in thinking about how we can improve affordable housing in the area. And yeah, I would just like to echo Councillor Duffy's comment that doing nothing is not a solution.
Thank you. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. Councillor Russ, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, and I'll be moving it with a change.
Yep, can I get your change, please?
And that's gone through to governance.
Just wait for that change and then we'll get a seconder. Is that it in front of us?
So I'll just read it out for everyone because it is new. That Council directs the General Manager to convene a meeting of Council's Independent Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee, Independent Finance Committee, to provide input into the scope of the fleet review outlined in the draft delivery program 2025 to 2029, and also the scope of the service reviews into Council's organisational structure and design as they come due, including looking at benchmarking and best value in resourcing. And 2, bring a report to the September ordinary meeting of Council with minutes and advice from our Independent Finance Committee on their initial work done in any meetings that have occurred within the first month.
Okay, seconder for that. Councillor Moylan, Councillor Russell.
We know that when a council in Western Australia included the governing body in the scope of a service review, $1.7 million was found. we know that the Local Government Institute for Excellence in Local Government says that councillors should be included in the scope of service reviews. It makes sense then, and is an incredibly reasonable proposition, might I suggest, to delegate that to our newly formed Independent Finance Committee to support ARIC in their work, to support our staff in their work, to make sure that you've just got some more independent oversight and professional input in it to do some of the heavy lifting with you. This is why I am proposing this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Russell for taking the lead on this. Certainly the role of council is to, and councillors, is to get the best value for ratepayers' money. And as we're looking at a potential massive rise in rates, we need to do everything we can to drive best value for ratepayers' money. The first item of business, as Councillor Russell is suggesting, is to do a service review, for the Finance Committee to do a service review. This is critical. This was out of the scope of the independent financial advisor from AEC, so it is well and truly overdue. And this is a big way that we can drive savings in this organisation, and it is well overdue. We should have done this years ago. I understand we're doing it in bits and pieces, but it needs to have a dedicated project around it, and the Finance Committee are set up to do this sort of work. So thank you again to Councillor Russell for taking the lead on this. We need to do these service reviews in one discrete project, and the Finance Committee will have the time and space to do that.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to this. Councillor Champion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, a question to Councillor Russell. You've said a few times that you've emphasised that this is an independent financial sustainability advisory committee, but it seems to me that you are trying to direct what it does, and I'd like to ask you what your understanding of independence is.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Champion. It is independent because it is independent of the management organisation. We know that we have our Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. However, their core function is actually to support management, and the role of an independent finance committee, as it's functioned elsewhere, is to support the governing body and management and take direction from the governing body as to where we would like their focus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak against this notice of motion, namely because we've only just convened the members of the Financial Sustainability Advisory Committee. They have clear terms of reference. There's a lot of work to do. The main focus is around the SRV, and I feel uncomfortable at this point in adding more to the long list of things that the committee needs to look at. I also feel uncomfortable that we're pushing from council on what they should be doing. So let's allow the committee to be inducted and to meet and to work out a program of what needs to be reviewed, and let that team get on with their job.
Councillor Kent.
I'm against this motion. Can it please be put?
I believe it can be. Councillor, your right to reply.
I have a question that I need to...
Sorry, it's been put, Councillor. So you get your right to reply, and then we'll put it to the vote.
I asked staff on the councillor questionnaire what current internal controls we have in place for managing the fleet review, but somehow that question wasn't answered on that questionnaire. So I'm going to assume that it might not currently be adequate. We've just actually established a finance committee. right now, right at 5 minutes to midnight, when we're about to be voting on a rate rise. Now, I will say again, in April last year, we, as a governing body, promised our community that we would exhaust all reasonable options before exploring a rate rise. And now we found out that our own policy on what's best value in how we're delivering our services, we've managed one service review with ARIC that's been approved and gone through the correct process, and that in the meeting, the minutes of the July meeting, that service review response from ARIC was that we didn't quite get there with the scope. It was incomplete. It needed to be looking at benchmarking and resourcing. Now, colleagues, the entire role of a finance committee is to work out how we can get the very best value for every single dollar of ratepayers' money. And what's our strategy about how to do that in council, Wingecarribee Shire Council? It's service reviews. So wouldn't that be the very first job of an independent finance committee? Aren't we fulfilling our due diligence for our community by following the processes and doing as we promised? Now, if we'd adopted this when I first suggested it after that April meeting, and I could see we had a bit of an issue with our finances. It was the first time I sent all of you colleagues an email and I said, look, when you've got a patient that's having a stroke, you don't wait to call the ambulance, right? If you're their carer, you don't listen to them saying, look, I'm fine, everything's fine, I don't need help. I've looked after stroke patients. You don't. You call the ambulance. You get them to hospital. But that was rejected. And then on 3 separate occasions, when I brought even just investigating a finance committee to this chamber, it was knocked down. And that was a very reasonable proposition. This too is a very reasonable proposition, colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put this motion to vote. All those in favour? Councillor Ross, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Russell, Councillor Moylan. All those against? Councillor Champion, Councillor Farrell, Councillor Foley, Councillor Kent, Councillor Smith, Councillor Patrick. That is lost. That closes the meeting at 6:18.